today. My topic is how to get your first 30 days on NoFap. You decided this is for you. You want to quit using porn and or quit masturbation. Maybe you found some information online and you realized, this might be a problem for me and maybe I could benefit from stopping for a while. Or you realized that quite a long time ago and you've been trying to get a good streak going, but somehow for some reason you keep breaking promises to yourself. You keep committing to do it, and then 2 weeks in, a day in, an hour in, whatever it may be, you fall, you fail. And we're going to try to figure out how to prevent that from happening and getting those first 30 days, that foundation that is so good for getting past that to 60 to 90 and to whatever your goals may be. So I'm going to assume a few things. I'm going to assume that you've already done your research, you've learned what you can about this, about how pornography can affect ourselves neurologically and emotionally and in our relationships. And I'm going to assume that you've read other people's stories, you know how porn can affect people and how people can recover and how that usually goes. Maybe you read my book, free on my website. Maybe you read Gary Wilson's book, Your Brain on Porn. Maybe you saw his TED Talk, which was my light bulb moment, the Great Porn Experiment, some foundational knowledge. And I'm also going to assume that you've made the decision that you want to do this, if not forever, like I made the decision, then at least for a certain period of time so you can see how it affects you. You can see if this is for you, if NoFap is for you, if you want to stop this long term. You just want to give it 30 days or 90 days or whatever, and see if this is going to provide you the benefits that you think it might. I'm going to assume that you've already purged the porn that you have. We all have collections, whether it be like a Word document with links or downloaded files, torrent files. I'm going to assume that you've purged all that. You've decided, no, I got to clear this out from my life, at least for this period of time, and go 100%. And I'm also going to assume that you've started to connect with other people online, maybe made a forum account on Reboot Nation or NoFap or something. You've started to interact with other people along this journey and maybe shared your own story. Now, if you've done all those things and you're still having a hard time getting to 30 days, this is where these tips will start to come in handy. And if you haven't done those things, then you should do those first and then start to do these other things. The first step, I think, is to forget about the 30 days. All right, if we hold in our mind that we're going to be doing this for 30 days, that's in the long term, that's not a long amount of time. But when we're in the middle of it, and especially when we're at the beginning, 30 days seems like a long time. And there's no way that in the present moment, we can control what our tomorrow self is going to do. We can help that tomorrow self make the right decision, but the only power we have is what we do right now, today, in the present moment. So stop thinking so much about getting 30 days because that's like swallowing a whole plate of food at once. You want to take this one bite at a time, one day at a time. So just focus on today, because the best gift that you can give to the self that's going to be struggling with this tomorrow or 2 weeks from now is to live as best you can today and go to bed satisfied and happy and proud, and then wake up excited to do it again. So number 2 is to know what to do when you're triggered. If we don't have a plan for what happens when we're triggered, if we're triggered by an image that pops up on our screen, or we're triggered by an emotion like just being bored or being lonely or depressed, and we have that temptation, that urge to watch porn, and we don't already have a plan in place, our prefrontal cortex, the part of ourselves that's rational and can decide logically based on the foreseeable consequences, that part of our brain is already starting to shut down, and it's in a battle with the part of ourselves, the reward circuit, that wants what it wants right now. And to make it easier for that part of ourselves, it helps to have a plan in place before you're triggered. It can be as simple as leaving the room. As soon as I'm triggered, I leave the room because I know like that's just automatic for me now. Because if I stay in that moment, if I'm battling with the part of myself that wants to use, then it's a possibility that I could lose. But if I just leave the environment, leave behind that temptation, go do something else, anything else really, wash some dishes, make a sandwich, go for a walk, play some basketball, call a friend. You can be specific about it, like you do the same thing every time, or you can be more general like me and just leave the room and find something, anything else to occupy your mind for a little bit. And that gives you the ability to separate yourself from that moment, gives you some space to breathe and let those triggered emotions sort of settle back down so that you can wrap your mind around what you actually want, what actually makes you happy. Because when we do give into that, what we're doing is sacrificing our future well-being for some present distraction and pleasure. We're hurting our future selves by benefiting our current selves with some distraction and pleasure. Number 3, structure your environment and your days to make things easier for you. We can't eliminate all triggers or all reminders of our past desires and our bad habits out of our lives, but what we can do is structure our environment to make it as easy as possible on ourselves. So if you look back and you realize, what always happens is I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is I pick up my smartphone, I'm looking at my email and stuff, and then before I know it, I'm looking at porn. Well, change your environment to make it harder for that to happen. When you go to bed, keep your phone in a drawer in the kitchen or something. You don't need your phone while you're sleeping. And if you use it as an alarm, you can buy a $5 alarm clock at, oh, now you can watch it, good, okay. You can buy a $5 alarm clock. That's not really an excuse to keep your phone by your bed if that's what's causing you to relapse. Similarly, if you have a computer in your room, well, move it out to the common space. If it's in the common area where your sister or your roommate or something could walk in, or it's just a space that you don't associate with porn and relapse, then that'll make it easier for you to do your work and use a computer and not get triggered, not get those temptations. And maybe you live alone and you decide that you need to cut off the internet connection to your house. And not only will you save like 50, 70 bucks a month, but you can still go down to the library or the cafe, the internet cafe or whatever, and do your work there. And some people do need to take a step that extreme, not that that's terribly extreme, and structure not only your environment, but your days. If you've read Patrick Carnes' Out of the Shadows, then you've read about, it's a book about sex addiction, one of the first about sex addiction. And you've read about especially entrepreneurs or the self-employed or people who have jobs where they have large amounts of time that only they are responsible for structuring. That unstructured time is the bane of an addict who's trying not to indulge in those behaviors. Because when we're out by ourselves, so especially if you have one of those jobs where you're not around other people, you don't have your boss or something keeping the structure for you, telling you what to do, and you're responsible for your own time. Or even if you do have one of those jobs and just in the evenings you have all this unstructured time, it's much more difficult to keep your mind from wandering in directions you don't want it to go than if you actually structure that time and you have purpose and you know what's going on and what you want to do during that time. Now you can block out half an hour sections throughout the whole day and know exactly what you're doing at each moment. It works for some people. It's a legitimate technique. I don't do that because it just doesn't work well for me. But what I do is I know I have certain goals throughout the day and certain things that I do every day. And that gives me structure and the ability to not have this unlimited array of choices in front of me. I can just look at my to-do list, which I write the night before, and know, okay, well, I can handle this next and start working on that. So have some sort of a daily structure that is giving some structure to your life. You can have a whiteboard where you write out like a calendar for the week and goals for each day and things like that, or you can just have a piece of paper that you write on every night before you go to bed with what you want to accomplish the next day. Start building in more structure into your life. You can also build in better habits, like every morning maybe you do something that makes you feel energized and ready for the day. You can write out your gratitudes, like things you're grateful for in your life. You can pray if you're religious. You can meditate. You can go for a walk, listen to some podcasts or whatever. You can read a book a little bit. You can write in your journal, whatever. Something that starts out your day right and helps you build that structure. And also, just in a non-sexual way, our environment reflects the environment of our minds and vice versa. So if your environment that you're in, you're living in, you're working in is messy and cluttered, then it's much more easy for your mind to be messy and cluttered. And if you take some time to organize things, make your bed every morning, for instance, that's a good place to start, then your mind will be more structured and it'll be easier to keep on task and not get distracted and waylaid by temptations and urges. All right, number 4, recovery is much more about addition and what you add to your life than it is about what you subtract and take away. If you, like most people think, oh, it's simple, this whole quitting porn thing, all you got to do is stop using porn, stop touching your penis. In a way, it is that simple, but for most people, it's not. Because when you take something like that away out of your life, it leaves a vacuum, especially if you used porn or masturbation as like an emotional crutch that you use to feel better when you feel bad. When you take that crutch away, you still have the limp. You're still not going to be able to walk very well. So you have to add something back in. When that hole is left vacant, it's like a vacuum. It wants something to fill it. You can fill it with positive, purposeful, passionate, satisfying activities and goals. Or if you don't, it'll just want to suck back in what it's used to being filled by, which is pornography and masturbation. So things to add. Purpose, number 1. Like if you are living with your parents, there's nothing wrong with living with your parents, but if you're living with your parents and sort of wandering aimlessly through life, playing video games to pass the time, looking for other distractions to distract you from the urge to use porn, things like that, and you don't have a purpose, like you're not going to school, you're not working a job that you really like, or you're not actively searching for that purpose, that's a large hole. So it's fine not to know what you want to do with your life. It's fine not to know exactly what you want to contribute to this world, what you want to build. What's not fine is not even looking for that. So start looking for it, take classes, start reading more books about different careers or aspirations, start learning more, start exploring, see what works for you and see what doesn't. Build in purpose into your life and add passion as well. Like have some hobbies that you're passionate about. It helps so much just to have some activities to do throughout the day. When you are tired of working or something, you can go do something else that you're passionate about, but that doesn't drag you down like pornography does. So for me, I'm passionate about exercise. I'm passionate about motorcycles. I love motorcycles. I'm passionate about making content, like making videos and stuff. So I've been learning a lot about videography. These are just examples of hobbies and passions that might tie into your purpose, maybe not, but things that you can fill your day with and feel good about. And add self-development. If I've learned in my adult life that if we're not growing stronger, if we're not actively trying to better ourselves, then we're getting weaker. And that's just how life works on this planet. If we're not struggling, if we're not trying to grow, if we're just trying to maintain at the same level, we'll actually end up getting weaker. So always be learning more and trying to discover how can I be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. Common ways to do this are fitness. If you're not in a fitness program right now, not working on getting better at something like martial arts or sports or lifting or swimming or something, get some fitness activity that you think will be fun and enriching and just engaging and that you actually will do on a regular basis, and start building that into your life. Good, if you just want to get stronger, a good program for that is Strong Lifts 5x5. There's an app. It makes it really easy just to go to the gym every 3 days a week, and you can see the progress as it goes on. You can track it in the app, and it makes it really easy to start becoming stronger physically, which will help you become stronger mentally. Now, if you don't want to go to the gym or you don't have any weights, you can do read Convict Conditioning, start doing calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups, things like that, and get stronger in some way physically. And get stronger as well mentally. Read books, watch videos on self-development. Try to figure out how to become better than you were yesterday. Add in closer relationships. Figure out how can I be closer to the people I care about in my life? How can I spend more time with them? And add in new relationships. Where can I meet people that will have similar interests to me, that will add positivity to my life, that will influence me in a positive way? Go to meetups, meetup.com or .org, one of those two. And there's a meetup for everything. So if you have any interests at all, you can find other people with similar interests and meet them. Take classes, just go out and start meeting people, talking to people, exchanging pleasantries. And add compassion. In self-development or in this journey of NoFap and giving up porn, it's easy to become mired in the idea that this is all about becoming a better version of ourselves and focusing too much on ourselves. But often the best way to make ourselves more happy is to make other people more happy and to add to their lives, make their days brighter. So add some compassion and think more about other people. Start giving genuine compliments like I love your style today, like something that's actually within you and not just on the surface, like, oh, you look pretty today. Make it something genuine and unique, something that you actually admire about someone. Like, man, I just love how you can always just talk to anyone, something like that. Or I love how you always make people feel like they can tell you anything. And just try to brighten people's days. Write out a letter, like a careful letter to someone you haven't seen in a while. Send it to them in the mail, like they used to do in the good old days. And you know that when they get that, they'll feel like that swelling in their heart, like, oh, this person actually took the time to write me a letter, or make a handmade gift for someone you love. Try to make other people's days brighter, and I think you'll be amazed at how much happier it makes you. And finally, add women. If you don't have any women in your life, don't have a variety of women in your life, maybe you've never been in a relationship, or you've been in hardly any relationships, or you never even kissed someone, add women into your life. I know it can be scary when you're starting out, but they're really not violent creatures on the whole. So try to meet more women. Like I said, go to those meetups and just meet people out in public. Ask people questions. Instead of looking at your phone for directions, ask someone out in the world for directions. It can be a pretty lady even. Meet people, start talking to people. Because all these things that I talked about before, there are ways of taking that sexual energy that's going to be built up on NoFap, on a porn-free life, and transmuting it into energy in other aspects of your life. But you can't take 100% of your sexual energy and just turn it into exercise and pursuing your passions and stuff. Some of that sexual energy has to actually go into connecting with people you're attracted to out in the world. And if not, then that pressure is going to build up and it's going to want to be released in some way. And that doesn't mean you have to have orgasms or have sex with a bunch of women out in the world. A way of outletting that sexual energy is just talking to people you're attracted to, flirting with them, holding eye contact, feeling that human-to-human connection. And that can be a powerful outlet for that sexual energy that's built up. It doesn't have to be a physical release, it's just an emotional release as you get to know more people and form more connections. So if you have no idea where to start with this, I recommend Coach Corey Wayne. You can look up his book, The 3% Man, or Mark Manson's book, Models, is another good one, just to get some foundational knowledge and start to realize how many possibilities for human connection there are out in the world. Just a couple last tips for you guys. Like I was talking about before, so many people hurl on their present responsibilities onto their future selves. Like, oh, I can have these donuts today, I'll just start my diet tomorrow. Or I can relapse today, it's only been 2 days. I can start the 30 days tomorrow or next week, and I wouldn't have lost much by relapsing now. But that's when you actually get to that point, when you get to tomorrow, when you get to next week, you're kind of angry at your past self for making those decisions, for shoving all these responsibilities and these struggles onto the future self, rather than being kind to that future self. So my tip here is to make a video message to your future self in 30 days or 90 days or whatever. Make a message talking to yourself about how in the past you've hurt that person, you've hurt your future self by making these choices that you later regret, but that you're now committing to be kind and compassionate toward that future you. And you're going to give him a gift. You're going to give him the foundation of the rest of his life by staying clean for 30 days or 90 days or whatever it may be. And that you're doing this for him. And you can watch this video later throughout your journey if you need a reminder. And you know, when you're faced with that urge, that it's not a choice between like momentary pleasure now or just like putting it off and doing it later. It's a choice between being kind to your future self or being mean to your future self and putting things on him that he doesn't want to deal with. So it's easier, if you think of it this way, to be kind to someone you kind of think of as other, because we want to be kind to each other and we want to be kind to our future selves. But when we don't think of it that way, it's easy to think like, It's easy not to care so much about hurting yourself as it is about hurting other people. But we're constantly becoming greater and new people every day. And if we are kind to our future selves, that will set the foundation for the rest of our lives. And once you get to that point, watch the message again and thank your past self for making those decisions, and then make a new commitment to your now future self. And lastly, I touched on this before too, read books. It doesn't always have to be self-help or self-development, but if you have one or two of those on deck at all times, you're constantly learning about new ways in which to build growth into your life. It's a great way to fill those spaces that are otherwise empty and that you're thinking like, oh, what do I do now? Maybe I should watch porn. No, you can pick up your book that you've been reading. The mind needs exercise just as much as the body does, and books are exercise for the mind. I think Tyrion Lannister said that, for the Game of Thrones fans out there. So sharpen your mind with books. Read a lot. All right. Those are my hot tips for getting your first 30 days, at least some of them. You can read a lot more in my book if you haven't read it already. Get the free PDF on my website. Go ahead and type in any questions about this or about anything really in the chat. What about flatlines in the first 20 or 30 days? Flatlines, yeah, a lot of people when they first quit porn, they just go into a flatline dive like immediately. That didn't really happen to me. I didn't have a lot of libido when I first quit, but I didn't feel like I was in a flatline either. My main flatline happened like 8 months in, but a lot of people do experience flatlines as soon as they quit. And that's a natural part of the process. Like, we don't fully have a lot of peer-reviewed scientific research on why flatlines happen or what the biological mechanisms happening are. But what I think of it as is just the body realizing like, okay, we've got to heal our sexual response system. So let's shut it down for a while, perform some repairs, and we can reactivate in however long, a couple weeks, a couple months even. But the mistake a lot of people make is to think of the flatline as an opponent, like they're going backwards in progress. But that's not true. You shouldn't be trying to think of how can I get out of the flatline. And if it goes on for a year, then maybe it's time to start trying some new things. But for a couple months or a couple weeks, that's a natural part of the process, and try to be grateful for it. Try to be grateful that, okay, with this flatline here, I'm not facing many urges. I can just focus on other aspects of my life. I can focus on the addition rather than the subtraction. And by the time my libido comes back, I'll have these habits built in and it'll be easier. Mr. Noski actually wants a flatline because he doesn't want cravings. I think about sex too much and it's hard. Yeah, I hear you, man. I think I would have been grateful for a flatline too at some points, but I don't know of any way to force a flatline, to start a flatline, so that I cannot help you with. My best advice is to, like for me at least, what works, and I've experimented with this, like I've experimented with reintroducing masturbation into my life when I'm not having any intimate relationships, any sex, and I've experimented with just being 100% off except for real sex and relationships. And that latter one is what works best for me, because if I let even the possibility of sexual pleasure when I'm by myself into my life, like it starts to grow and snowball and leads to more urges to use porn and escalate again into that behavior. So for me, what works best is try to 100% avoid sexual fantasy and masturbation, even masturbation without fantasy. And that way I can just focus on my life and my sexual outlet when I don't actually have sex or have an intimate relationship is just meeting new women and trying to flirt and connect with them and have that emotional connection between two people. And that's what excites me when I'm that 100% abstinence, no masturbation, no fantasy mode. And that's what I'm doing now. And I'm learning, like, as I go back and forth, that that's what works best for me. So if you haven't tried that yet, then go ahead and give it a try. All right, much love, everybody. Have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see you next time.